Good evening, participants. We have Dr. Farzana Chowdhury with us today. Dr. Farzana Chowdhury is an assistant professor of entrepreneurship at the Durham University Business School. She has completed her PhD from Indiana University in the US, and she has also completed her master's degree from the Indiana University in Comparative and International Affairs, Non-Profit Management, and Public Policy. She has a BS in Corporate Finance from Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. Dr. Chaudhry's research areas include entrepreneurship, strategic management, and organizational behavior. Her research focuses on how contextual elements influence strategic decisions that entrepreneurs take for themselves and on behalf of their organizations. She has traveled the distance of 1 day and 11 hours in a matter of minutes to join us. And this has only been made possible with the technology and with the collaborations that the academia has been sharing. So thank you for traveling this huge distance with us and joining us. This is her beautiful city in the Great Britain. This is the cathedral that we were talking about a few minutes earlier. And the university that she's teaching, it shares similar architecture. So I'm sure that every day it's a very beautiful walk. This is also a part of the city which shows the greenery and the clear skies. And Dr. Farzana, if you could recognize this, is this an aerial view of your university?
Yes, that's the cathedral, and the bridge you showed goes behind some of the university buildings. So a lot of the faculty members, they usually walk across the bridge. So our team is on the one side of the bridge, and there are our human resource department on the other side of the bridge.
Perfect. This is also a view of her university.
That's the getting in the cathedral. So whenever there is the commencement, students walk across the yard.
And I'm sure it must be very exciting for the students and for the faculty. And one final view of her university, which is also sharing part with the cathedral. And
yeah, that's the inside of the cathedral.
Yes, that's it. Dr. Shahid, please officially welcome her so that we can hand over the show to her and she can start her presentation. Abdullah, is Dr. Shahid there?
I think no. I think Dr. Farzana start.
Yes, Doctor, his net has dropped. Dr. Farzana, if you could share your screen and officially the stage is over to you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Shahid is here. I think he wants to say something.
Yes, Dr. Shahid.
Dr. Shahid, I have unmuted you.
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just please proceed. Thank you very much. We don't want to waste time, so we want to listen, Dr. Saab. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Saab. I'm there, Abdullah. I'm there. My laptop is not working, so I will be on the iPhone.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Taskin. Thank you, Dr. Shahid, for inviting me and for the very nice introduction. It's my pleasure to be here. So today, I will talk about, this is one of the, I teach technology innovation to my MBA students. And it's one of the topics that I cover during the 9-week session that we have together. So today, we are going to look at different types of innovation and diffusion, the pattern of diffusion that the technology goes through. So here is a brief outline. So we will start by looking at different dimensions that are used to distinguish different types of innovation. So there tend to be 4 different types of categories. One is product versus process, radical versus incremental, competence enhancing versus competence destroying, and then there's the architectural versus component. Then we'll move on to describing the different patterns of diffusion and innovation that technology goes through. And the last portion that I'm going to talk about is the cycle of technology. The research shows is that each cycle, technology seems to go through a cycle, and during each cycle, at the beginning, it goes through a rapid improvement, followed by a period of what we call in economics the diminishing return. The amount of effort you put in, the return is not that great. And then finally, then there's the disruptive innovation that comes in, and there's the discontinuity happens. Before I move on to the content, if you want me to stop, maybe somebody can let me know, or if there is any clarification question.
No, you don't go on. We will have a question and answer session in the end.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the different dimension I talked about. Those dimensions usually helps us to clarify why there is an innovation needed. It may come from a farm's internal research, or it may come from outside demand. For example, maybe farm figure out users want something different. There might be regulatory or policy-oriented focus that forces farms or individual entrepreneurs to innovate. The technology that goes through time and follows a pattern, what we call is the technology trajectory. What research showed is that technologies tend to follow a pattern. Of course, you as a manager would definitely want to know when to invest in which technology. That would definitely give you a heads up. So next few seconds, if you look at these pictures, probably especially the younger generation is laughing at the second picture, which shows this huge computer. And the computer you were using, and compared to that picture, you can't imagine, probably if you were alive at that time, could not imagine the computer we are using now. So that definitely shows you how far we have come and what technology made us possible. The first one is, of course, the old version of the airplane. We know how the airplane improved. Then the last one I have is the video, and that's definitely younger generations probably is laughing looking at these pictures. So what are the types of innovation? The most often we think of when we think of innovation is product innovation, which generally comes from improving a product. Just by definition of it, you probably can understand. Then the most often is the process innovation, where a farm is trying to improve its process. And often it happens is that product and process innovation go hand in hand. But that doesn't, even though product and process innovation can happen simultaneously, that can also depend on farm specific. So for example, if for product innovation could be for one farm does not mean product innovation for another farm. What I mean is that product innovation for one farm can mean process innovation for another farm. And it can be other way around. So one farm's process innovation can be product innovation for another farm. So to give you an example, I'm sure you have heard of the UPS, the carrier in the US which distributes or delivers product to the customers. When the UPS itself came out of its product, for them, it was a product innovation. Their delivery service was a product innovation for them. For their customer, it meant process innovation. That's the way they could deliver their goods and services. So again, I'm repeating myself that product and process innovation can go hand in hand, but it depends on the farm. One farm's product, maybe another farm's process, or another farm's process could be another farm's product. Then, of course, we often see is the radical innovation. What the difference between radical and incremental tend to be depending on who you ask, or oftentimes depends on user as well. So radical innovation is something what in entrepreneurship we call out of the ballpark. That's very different, very new market. It can be new market, new product, is nothing that you have seen before. Incremental is something that already an existing product than the farm that trying to improve. So to give you an example, we are all familiar with Coke. When Coke introduces different varieties of flavor, what they're engaging in is incremental innovation. On the other hand, I'm sure we all remember when iPhone 1 came out. That literally changed the way how we look at phone. It changed not only the market, it also changed how the user's perspective. So that's definitely a radical innovation. But also, does radical innovation mean it's same for every farm? No. Radical innovation for one farm may be completely incremental innovation for another farm. So one example I could think of is digital photography. Probably it was very new for Kodak, but not necessarily for Sony. They probably thought it was just an incremental innovation. Then, of course, during innovation also happened in the farm, depending on farm's competence. So it can be, innovation can be competence enhancing or competence destroying. Competence enhancing is when farms build an innovation based on their existing knowledge. On the other hand, competence destroying also can happen when it completely gets rid of the farm's existing competence. Can it happen in the same farm? Yes. Both the competence enhancing and competence destroying happen within the same farm, depending on how the farm is using its resources, how they are looking at their product, how they're looking at their customer needs. So a lot of the farm's effort goes into when competence enhancing and competence destroying innovation. Then, of course, these tend to be the last one we usually talk about. This architectural versus component innovation can be oftentimes associated with the incremental innovation. So component is the farm is changing one part of their existing product. Whereas architectural innovation, they either design the entire product. It's not nothing new, they're just pretty much redesigning the product itself. So again, component and architectural innovation can happen within the same farm. So Taskin, I don't know if there is a chat room available. So give you everybody just to think about where do you think these products would, where would you put them in that grid that I have on the right-hand side?
Dr. Farzana, we do have a chat room available.
Okay, so then I will just give you a couple of minutes to think about where do you think, and then probably I can say where I think, and we can discuss after I'm done.
Dr. Farzana, can you view the chat box?
I can see it. Let me see if I can. Yes, I'm guessing everybody can see it on my screen, right?
No, we can't.
Oh, okay. So I see Bitcoin as disruptive innovation. Electric car is incremental. Yes. Let me go back to the screen. I moved, sorry. Yeah. Well, okay. So we can, that's interesting. So I have one person saying electric cars is disruptive and another person saying electric car is incremental. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Bitcoin. That's how Bitcoin is very disruptive, probably. Okay. Okay, so yes, thank you for everyone for sharing. I'm liking what I see. So definitely Bitcoin, I would agree with that's very radical. Google Glass, that's incremental in my view. Apple Watch, yes, probably when it came out, um, I'm not sure. I think electric car and Apple Watch, I debate with those. Same thing that I am saying. I have the same discussion with my students that electric cars, depending on who you ask, probably for Tesla, it was a radical innovation. For Ford, not so much maybe. Apple Watch, we were, by the time Apple Watch came out, we all knew when Apple Watch came out, we were used to the Apple phone. So it was just transitioning from having something, holding it versus something on our wrist. So yes, Apple Watch and electric cars, probably we all can, we would all disagree at some level depending on which farm we are looking at. I see one question about, can you shed some light on radical innovation? Do you mind clarifying your question a little bit? Do you want me to give you an example, or what kind of, or are you asking for definition? Oh, so radical innovation, the way it's often book version of definition is something completely new, as it's completely new to the market. So as if you look at picture your look at the grid on the right hand side, it's completely new in terms of technology and in terms of market. That's what radical is. Google Glass, I would say, is an incremental innovation. We're already using a glass before. Google found a new way of using it. Bitcoin is definitely radical innovation because it's not something, it was completely new to the market. It's definitely new technology. And so I don't think anyone, there is not any disagreement on as far as Bitcoin goes. Smart electricity meters, that's probably more industry specific. Meters probably people are used to it. Probably it's more toward incremental innovation because it's improving the existing product itself. Any other question as far as these categories go?
Thank you, Dr. Farzana. We would like you to proceed, please.
Okay. So how do technology improve? So I am going to minimize this. So often what the research shows is the improvement of technology and diffusion of the technology tend to follow an S-curve. What does the S-curve look like? This is what the S-curve look like. So on the x-axis, the figure I have right now in front of you is for the performance or improvement of the technology. So depending on how much effort you have to put in and how much are you getting back. So sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. So this figure shows you a little bit better picture as far as what do I mean by technology S-curve in terms of performance. So at the very beginning stages or the initial stages, as you can see, when the technology at the emerging level, you tend to have very high investment in it. But at the same time, when we will in a few minutes, we will look at how the diffusion works, then probably it will give you a better idea why. This is what is called the technology evolution S-curve, how the technology progresses over time. At the emerging stage of the farm, you are investing a lot of effort in it. Your performance, you are getting not so much. But then at the developing stage, you are probably getting return much higher rate. Then when the technology at the mature stage, you are not probably investing that much. At the same time, you are not getting that much. So at the mature stage, the technology tend to be on the phasing side of it. Managers would definitely like to, when I talk to my students, I tell them, since they tend to be more of a technology side, they definitely want to look at it. But does that mean all the technology reach that mature technology? Probably not. If you follow or if you invest your resources in technology, you have to at least invest a lot of resources to figure out where exactly are you on this curve. If you're not paying that close attention, you're probably going to miss out where you are in terms of technology soon. So that's why I went back to this slide, that if you are not paying attention, what could happen? What can be the challenges? Your technology can be replaced by a discontinuous technology, which is probably serving the customer need that you are not currently meeting, or something they figure out something new. So that probably could replace your technology. So if you are a technology manager, you want to put your investment to figure out where exactly are you on that S-curve. You could have multiple S-curve depending on number of products you have. So that gives you a better idea which products maybe you want to improve on, you want to make investment on, which products you eventually want to get rid of. So what happens with the technology diffusion? The research suggests that technology diffusion also seems to follow the same S-curve as the performance. At the initial stage, there is resistance. Then as people or your customers start to understand or recognize their need of the technology, that there is increased use of the product, then of course, eventually it comes to a point where it's saturated. There is no more you can do about it. So this shows the diffusion curve. As you can see, it follows almost similar pattern as the performance curve. So as the time goes, you see your performance on adaptation of your product going through very similar pattern. At the initial stage, not many people are using it. That's because they don't have the knowledge. They are not sure if what exactly it's serving, the purpose. The technology might be fragile. It might be unreliable. Oftentimes what happens with the new technology is users are not willing to take the risk with the technology, and age might be an issue, generation gap might be an issue. Then as the product, people get used to it, get more knowledge about it or information about it, then it progresses more. So can it be used, you as a manager, can you use it as a prescriptive tool? Yes or no? Following that S-curve can mean investing a lot of your resources, which depending on what opportunity cost you are looking at. Do you rather invest in the product that you currently have, or do you want to invest your resources in something new? Where do you want to be front runner? By being a front runner, of course, you have the first mover advantage, but you have the problem of there are a lot of mistakes, the cost, a lot of the problem that comes with that. But at the same time, do you want to be follower? Is it always beneficial to be follower? Depends on what your market goal is, or you as a firm, what's your goal? Where do you want to do? So it depends on how closely you want to follow that S-curve. Sometimes you might even probably losing the market. For example, let me go back to that curve. So as you can see, hopefully you can see me moving the cursor on this stage. If you're on this side, how do you decide when to get out of the market? Or how do you know when you are at the right place, that this is the time to maybe looking at something else? So yes, having an S-curve gives you that nice little, we all like to know when to change, but definitely S-curve might not give you exactly the same. But there is on the positive side, at least you know then there is something that you can follow. And how closely you should follow it, I would suggest I leave it up to you as a manager to decide. That, like anything, there is a positive and negative to that. So on the next segment, I'm going to talk about how technology moves, or the technology cycle. What do you mean by that? So next couple of minutes, I want you all to think about, you be a manager at an organization. It can be a hypothetical organization or an organization you want dream of getting in. You can choose any company. I want you to think about a product. Either you can write it down or have it in your mind. Just give you a couple of few minutes to think about it. Okay, so how do technology move in cycle? So there have been a lot of research on these areas, but again, any research, there is still argument going on as far as there is no consensus as far as where are we as far as the technology curve goes. So how do you know which phase are you in? I showed you the S curve that tells you, okay, you are in your product, you are trying to put your effort in it, then where are you as far as the cycle goes? So this is a paper by Atterberg and Abernathy. Their view was that technology cycle tends to go through 3 different phases. Their first phase, they call it fluid phase, which is that the early, if you trying to map it as far as with the S curve goes, that's the early phase where there is a significant amount of uncertainty about the market, about the product design. Is at the phase suggests, or they called it fluid. It's very fluid. You are still trying to design, figure out the market. Then the second phase they talk about is the dominant design. During that phase, what happens is there tend to be a consensus among the industry players that this is the product that it needs. The product's features, everybody agrees on. There is no sort of argument about it. And then there is the last phase that a product moves into is the specific phase. That's when you see incremental innovation. So this is how they looked at their view is. So in the fluid phase, farms tend to be very unsure about which factors they'll get the best response from the market. So they often experiment to get the feedback from their customers. Once they get their feedback from their customers, they make changes to their product. So after going through that fluid phase comes the dominant phase, which is that high curve. That's when everybody sort of agrees, okay, these are the features the products need, customers, it meets the customer needs. They are pretty sure they got the close to as perfect product as possible. At the specific phase, as you can see, it starts to drop off. The farms that you have enough competition, everybody is trying to get into the product. Probably the best example would be the smartphones right now. The Apple came out with it first. Now Samsung has tons of products. Huawei, there are tons of other companies in other countries who copy Apple's. So if you think of Apple is probably at that specific phase. They are just going through that incremental innovation. So if you think of Apple from the early 2000 and to now, you can probably put Apple in each phase of this figure. Then of course, we had another revision to that phase. Anderson and Tashman came out on their study saying they did not agree with it. Or in other words, they thought probably product goes through era of ferment, era of incremental change, and in between then there is the dominant design. And then there is their view was that this technological discontinuity was more important. So in the era of ferment is that's when this uncertainty, they did agree with that. The turbulence uncertainty begins at the introduction. On this phase, they tend to replace either the existing product, if there is one, or they're that radical innovation that we looked at the figure. So they're on the top right-hand corner. Dominant, and another disagreement they had with the Abernethy paper was that when actually does dominant design happen? Their view was that rather than having, I'm going back, having that short period of dominant design, they view, they don't like the specific phase. So their view is that dominant design happens as long as there is no technological discontinuity. As long as there is no new product, you still have the dominant design. So that's where the disagreement happened. So to get a little bit more into the Anderson and Tashman paper is during the era of incremental change, firms often tend not to invest in alternative design. Instead, they focus on developing competencies related to the dominant design. So that's why they explain, their version of explanation was, excuse me, that's why they think that incumbent firms may have difficulty recognizing where or reacting to the discontinuous technology. So if they are following too closely the S-curve, they might miss out when to move to a new technology. So now going back, think of your product and do you think, what are your competition? Is there a dominant design? If you could look at the Abernethy paper, Otterbeck paper, or the figure, be that or the Anderson Tashman paper, does your product, is there a dominant design? I will give you all few minutes to think about it. I'm going back to chat to see. Before I move on to chat question, here are some additional readings I thought if you are interested. And now I'm ready for questions, if it's okay.
Yes, definitely, Dr. Farzana. We will have questions coming in. Participants can type in the questions in the chat box.
So once again, it's a great thanks a lot, ma'am. And it's a bit complicated for some people because this is technology and innovation, and Dr. Farzana is a PhD in that area, and some of our entrepreneurs are emerging. But still, I was learning and I was thinking about our own department during this COVID phase. We also went through technological change, and we were trying to figure out our own dominant design. And you see, we used to teach in the classes And my friends from the US, whenever they visited Pakistan, they used to say, Shahid, why don't you start teaching online? And we said, no, we're lazy, we can't do it, we can't do it. So once the COVID came, you see, we learned Zoom and we made movies. I purchased a camera of 1,500 rupees, and this all of this course emerged. So we are a team of like 20 people in 5 months. We went through this very rapid learning on online. We developed our own LMS. We made the movies and everything went to. So when I was listening to you, I saw that S curve coming into our own department. So I think even as an entrepreneur, when I reflect back at the curve, it helped me to see that how things keep on moving. And do you? So it is that it makes you more comfortable, is it, Dr. Farzana? Look at these curves.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all went through that changes. I mean, even at Durham, we went through that phase of, even though we are used to teaching online MBA courses, but all of a sudden having to teach undergrad students to teach online. I think we all went through that phase of, okay, where are we? We were forced into, I think we, at the beginning of the COVID, we are at the initial phase of the curve, if we think about it, that we forced us to look at technology, learn it. And if we look at the S curve, I think we are getting to that middle, that we put so much effort that we're starting to look at that shape. I don't know if you can see my finger or hand moving. Oh, let me go back. Um, I think I think we are on this phase that we are getting used to doing everything online, forced to use the technology. But we know a lot more information. We have a lot more information right now than we had at the beginning of COVID. So yeah, we are on that diffusion S curve for sure.
Exactly. So there is a question: being a manager at Toyota, looking at electric car, Tesla seems to have the dominant logic design. Toyota needs to triumph Tesla's design, as Tesla already has this first mover advantage. So somebody has commented. I don't know if you can understand. Noman Yusuf has said something.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tesla definitely has the first mover advantage. For them, definitely it was a radical innovation by all means. For Toyota right now, probably it's more incremental innovation, because they were leader in the, if you look at car industry or automotive, they were leader in that area anyway. But for them to move on to the electric car is probably more of a incremental, I would say. But again, it's probably depending on how they are looking at it, depending on farms. That's one of the area probably we all could debate where is Toyota and Honda or Ford.
As an entrepreneur, Dr. Farzana, can we do something that to find how can we find who are the innovators and early adopters? I am a small firm, I'm a scientist, and I invent something, and how to find. So I have to try my best, to find those people in surrounding in my neighborhood and try to engage them and get them. And once they find me, then the word of mouth will spread, and early adopters will follow. This is how things will happen.
Um, yes, so there is, okay, so the way I look at it is entrepreneurship and innovation sort of had love-hate relationship.
Mm.
So entrepreneurs are always looking for something new, right? They are very passionate, they are very futuristic, they don't want to, they are always thinking of new things. So it would be, the way I look at it, the other graph of the S curve is how long are they going to stay in that emerging phase? So I so that's the problem I have with entrepreneurs and innovation. They are always coming up with new, again, that's why they are entrepreneurs, I'm not. But at the same time, they have to stay, as we can see from the figure, is how long are they willing to invest? They have to put a little bit of effort and going through probably failure. And failure is another issue that I think we all need to talk more about in entrepreneurship. We don't talk about it enough, how to learn from failure.
Great.
And probably innovation, they do a good job of learning from failure.
Can I ask a different perspective, Dr. Farzana? You were raised in Bangladesh, I think. You left for the US in the early ages. You went for undergrad.
I left for high school.
Oh, so mashallah, I just want to, there are many women in this course, and we would like to know a little bit of your own personal journey of hard work and commitment and finding a way coming out of a country and making your name in the US and then in the UK while preserving your own value system. Mashallah, you seem to be a practicing lady which is covering her head. And so this journey of competing in the international arena, you mashallah went for a PhD and went to the best schools. So how did you develop that competency to mashallah learn, and what was the key success factors? So maybe our
Actually,
ladies will be happy to know. Yeah, inspiration. We need to get some inspiration from you. Yeah, Khalaji, our ladies, shall I ask this question? That how did Dr. Farzana is an inspiration for mashallah? She is, look at her credentials. So yes, please, Dr. Saba.
sorry, I don't know. That's very kind of you, but I don't know if I'm there yet. Again, I don't know. I guess you just try. There's what I found was people. There are nice people who are willing to give you opportunity. Anytime you have an opportunity, take it. I mean, it might not always be right time, right place, but again, don't wait for right time, right place. It's never going to be right time, right place. And one thing I would tell you, I know, well, because my situation is a little bit different because I came to, I did my high school, so it was easier. It's easier when you're young to get used to the culture and everything. And then, of course, I went to school when my kids were young. So again, if anybody needs help or answer any question on that, I'm happy to answer that. It was not easy, but alhamdulillah, went through that. I mean, thank you for that kind of question, but I don't know. The best
The
suggestion
point
I
is
can
that
give.
it is very competitive. I understand. You see, to make a position to get a job in a British university, you really have to be very good in your understanding, your presentation skills, your teaching methodology. You have to be at the cutting edge. So how do you prepare yourself for that? You work every day. You find innovative things. You find mentors. You pray a lot to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. You ask your mom to make dua for you. So these are the questions which we would like to know. That what shall we do? What shall a Pakistani woman do if they want to study, if they want to excel? These are some of the things which can be inspiration. Yes.
Um, well, there's, of course, it's hard, I'm sure, especially for women, if you're married, have family, it's not easy. Try to make time. If you're a student, probably it's easier to devote time to your studies. Do something you like.
Exactly.
Do
Yeah,
something you
that's
like. You don't mind if you do something that you don't mind staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to be, yeah, I mean, it's not always going to be, oh yeah, they're going to be done by 5 o'clock and then get to enjoy or watch TV, movie. It's not going to be that. Let me tell you that. And that's one advice as I tell all my undergrads, graduate students, and probably I can tell all as a woman. Sorry, excuse me. Sometimes you just have to take a hard approach to it. Don't just think, okay, I'm going to be done by 5 every day. It's not. Yeah, you are going to have a downtime some days. You are going to be done by 5, 6. Some days you just have to stay up until 2, 3 in the morning to work on it. But again, if you find something you like, you don't mind putting that time in, and have a goal. Do you have something in mind that you want to achieve? Like, we can learn personally. I think we can learn from farms. Have a short-term goal, have a long-term goal. What is your goal?
That's good idea.
What's your goal for next 2 years? What's your goal for this event tomorrow, by the end of the day? Start from today. What's your goal by the end of the day? Even if it means writing 500 words, do it.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
If by the end of this month, your goal is to finish a method section, finish it. If you are not done, last day, try to finish it. So make a plan, be both short-term and long-term. And okay, again, our faith, of course, comes in when we are planning this thing. So we can make our own plans, doesn't mean it will happen. And we have to have faith in that. And I can talk about it. Hopefully, people who are not of my faith, don't mind, please. I'm not imposing anything, but people of my faith I'm talking to on this one is, we can make our own plan. Doesn't mean it will work out. We have to have faith on that. There's some bigger force making plans for us, who has better knowledge than us, but whatever we have to use it. Hope that made sense.
Wonderful answer. Wamakaru, wamakar Allah. God plans for you. You plan and God plans. Wallahu khairul makirin. And his planning is the best. So one of our participants, Mehwish Sayyid Saiba, is writing a lot of questions and comments. She's saying radical innovation followed by incremental innovation is a formula for market success. So can you comment on that?
That's definitely. But again, depending on your organization's goal. Yes. So I am bringing in the old farms just because they're easier to see how they went through the phases. So for example, if you look at Pepsi and Coke, they probably are now going through that incremental phase. They are introducing new products, but at the same time, if you look at Pepsi, they are coming up with, at least in the US market, they are introducing all new products all the time. So again, yes, you are right. To be successful, you have to have that incremental innovation and radical innovation at the same time. And so for each product, you can use that S-curve to determine where you are on that curve. That probably, again, as I said on the slide, that's not the magic formula by any means, because you have to have resources invested in it. But that doesn't mean by following that, you might even miss an opportunity. So it's better to have a diverse portfolio of products or services. I don't mean to sound like it's only going to be product. No, it's even for the service industries. Having a portfolio is probably better. That gives you both radical opportunity to radical innovation and at the same time, incremental innovation. Hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. We just take one last question. That is my friend Asim Hussain, and I really like him a lot. He and his wife are taking this course. Jeffrey Moore talks about the S-curve, and he says about crossing the chasm. And he says that many companies fail when they cross the chasm. The transition from early adopters to, so how do startups survive this chasm? So that valley which they have to jump over. Any idea, any experience, Dr. Saba?
So yes, there, of course, definitely there is a challenge in that, because at that stage, you are fighting for resources, which one of the important resource you are fighting for at that time is finances. A lot of the farms that die pretty much because they don't get finances. And I'm happy to send you an article that I shared with my student MBA students last week, is how there's an article about it, how to get out of it. Try to find finances. And yes, that's I really dislike saying it, but finance is one of the major concern at that stage. Without that, definitely you are trying to gain market share at this stage. But without the finances, you cannot do anything to increase your market share by any means. So it's almost like, yeah, you don't have the financial resources, but at the same time, you also have to pay attention to the market. So finance and market share gaining goes hand in hand. And I really dislike sounding like a corporate sellout to say, but finance and gaining market share goes hand in hand.
Great. Wonderful. MashaAllah. Thank you very much. And just one last question from my side. Dr. Farzana, are you seeing a radical innovation coming in education? Like we have a 4 years, 3 years degree in Pakistan, 2 years MBA, 6 years of business education. Isn't that too much? Lot of money, lot of things going on. We are preparing people for the corporate world, and the world is moving towards entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is common sense. So we need to work on skills. So any take on that, any understanding, and what do you see coming up? G, the last question, please, and then yes.
Uh, as far as education goes, I think at least in US, UK industry, there is bigger debate than having 4-year, 2-year degree in terms of MBA. I think we were discussing about how to decolonize the business school curriculum.
Exactly.
So I think that's the next few years, that's going to be more of concern of the business schools, both sides, at least in US and UK.
And you see a lot of articles coming. A British professor writing an article in Guardian, and when I was at Harvard, they gave it to me. Bulldoze down the business school. Bulldoze down the business school. You see such controversial things coming up. We never had it in 2005, 10, but you see in the last few years, this debate is emerging as corporations are vanishing and jobs are vanishing, and people have to struggle to do something interesting on their own.
Well, that also brings an interesting question about should the companies play a bigger role? What used to be in the US culture, or US corporate culture, I should say, that they took care of their employees. So maybe culture should come back. Yes, it's good. The US went through the capitalistic phase, or however you want to define it. But is it time to look back at the 60s and the 70s, and do we learn from it? Maybe we should put, rather than bulldozing the business schools, I would say business schools should teach the future leaders how to think about development. Why should we not talk about sustainable development? Why should we not talk about women's rights? Why should we not talk about human rights? So these are the topics I think business schools should talk about. And I think schools are, at least my school is starting to welcome that kind of initiative. I hope all the business schools do. I think there is a lot to be learned from. Yes, entrepreneurship is good. I think that's why we need more entrepreneurs. They are the one coming up, be it changes in society, be it changes in the company, in terms of both products, process, culture, in anything. So I think that's the discussion, at least in education, going to be next few years.
Great, mashallah, Zabardasti. So I would really like to summarize and say thank that this session on innovation and innovation types. I think it can help us to know what the S curve is and how things are. There is a chance how things will emerge. So our entrepreneurs, men and women, can prepare themselves. Whatever we think, my friends and my brothers and sisters and my colleagues, we need to. We as an entrepreneur, we need to find our where we are, and then once we identify where we are, we can leverage that technology and find, you see, those people who are who are the ones who can take who can buy our cells, then we can find followers and so on and so forth. And in addition to that, we knew talked about you see the chasm, how to jump. We need to find partners, friends who can help us in this. And eventually, I think it was a very impressive story of our fellow lady that she mashallah start a story of resilience, hard work, and commitment. And it's an example for our women of Pakistan that if you work hard and as you say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those people who make an effort in our way, and we open and unfold things for them. So I think that is, and this is a very interesting thing which Dr. Farzana said, that start with whatever you can do. You go for a short-term plan and a medium-term plan and a long-term plan, and start doing what. Don't go get hindered with very long-term plans. So this is something very interesting learning, and I wish her. And I just to share that the IBACD and Dr. Farzana and Durham University, we are working on a research project on Pakistani SMEs. So Dr. Farzana will be the lead author, and we will be working with her, inshallah, and look forward to find some interesting data which can be shared, inshallah, in I think 5, 6, 7, 8 months. Yes. So, Janab Taskeen Saba, anything else? Taskeen Saba, can you say another thank you from my side, and everybody can please say thanks, note of thanks on the chat box. Everybody say shukran, and how, I don't know whether we say, how do we say in Bangalish? I still need to visit Dhaka, and that's going to be, and the amount of development which is taking place in Bangladesh is marvelous, and that needs to be studied. And my friend Musaddiq Zulkarnain, who is owner of a $1 million company, and I think something he talked so good about Bangladesh. He said, "Can I share, Janab? Rastani ho jayenge." And uh, you know what he shared, Dr. Farzana?
Yeah.
He shared the level of woman empowerment and the respect of women. What he saw in the Bengali is unprecedented. He said that a lady can independently walk in Dhaka, and I think Pakistanis really have to learn actually. Oh, mashallah, Mehboob Sayyid has written something in Bengali. Wow. So, Jazakallah.
Thank you.
So, microfinancing in Bangladesh is really to learn. And usko Urdu mein haya kehte hain. Musaddiq Zulkarnain, the CEO, was saying that he saw haya in the men and women of Bangladesh. And the women of Bangladesh were, I'm sorry to say, my dear fellowmen, but this is what Dr. Musaddiq Sahib was saying, that the men of Pakistan need to be educated. They need to be, I'm sorry, main apne aap ko keh raha hu, we need to be more humble, more respectful to our women and our communities. And the other thing Dr. Musaddiq Sahib said that there are like 3 to 4 flights daily from Islamabad to Karachi. And there are how many flights from Dhaka to Chittagong every day? Do you know, Dr. Farzana? 60. 60.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes. 60 flights daily. So that is and your GDP, your budget is much bigger than Pakistan right now. So that speaks volumes of your education, your commitment, and human development. So we pray for you and we thank you. And so there are a lot of thank you coming in. Dhan Yabada. Dhan. How do we say? How do we pronounce, Dr. Farzana?
Dhonnobad.
Dhanabad. Bhalu Ashan. And thanks a lot, Dr. Farzana. Thank you. It will take more
Thank
generation for men to start respecting women.